Hi guys, so this is my review of Mockingjay, the final installment in the Hunger Games series. I read it over 2 nights. It was an addictive read like the other novels were, and I didn't really go into it with any expectations necessarily. There was nothing I wanted to see occur. I was just curious to, to witness what would happen now that we were entering into the full-on war experience, and I knew that people had warned me, to be prepared for the violence and whatnot, because I get very upset and angry by it. And my dear friend Fran had told me I have to kind of make comparisons in my head between the latter half of Deathly Hallows with the battle in that one, and the Obernewton Chronicles Book 4, which has a terrible war scene that was so upsetting. And so I kind of had those things looming over me in terms of brace yourself because this is going to happen. So when the battle in this actually finally occurred, in some ways, actually, I think I did build that up a little too much because I was braced for something truly, truly horrific, and it kind of happened in fragments more so, that was still horrible, but it wasn't nearly as in your face and hit me as hard as the other books did, the other examples. Okay, so, yeah, pretty much the premise is that, premise, whatever, is that we're in wartime now, we're building up to it, and District 13 and all the rebels from the districts are going to go against the capital and overthrow this government body who are insane and corrupt and cruel and crazy, and yeah, hopefully justice will be served and everyone in Panem, whatever you want to call it will be free. So yeah, I know a lot of people took issue with the first half of the book or so because the pacing was too slow for a lot of people. I'm not a big action fan, so when, things are more subdued and it's day-to-day activity and stuff, that doesn't bother me. And I like to see, just the interactions between people, and I like to get a feel of where things are standing before, everything kicks into gear. So it was good to see how things work in District 13. It was good to see where people are, where the past tributes and characters we know, where they are in their minds and their feelings towards what's going to come. And it was interesting also to see that the rebels and, those within District 13 aren't necessarily any better than those in the capital necessarily, and that you get to see the idea that this isn't, black and white, good versus evil. It's not as obvious as that, and there's this threat that, potentially those who want to be in power from the rebel side of things could be as damaging and as detrimental to the nation as those in the capital. So you get a feel of that, which presents some nice tension and feeling kind of foreshadowing and unease there. And you also see, where characters are. So Gale in particular, I've never cared for Gale. For whatever reason, he reminds me of Jacob 2.0, as I call him, from the Twilight Saga. Jacob, from halfway through New Moon onwards when he became a douchebag. And Gale's just, I don't know why, he just reminds me of him, and so I've never taken to Gale. And you get to see him this time. He's always been the more rebellious, outspoken guy, opposing the capital, but now you get to see that that's really fully fledged because he has a target and things are actually going to happen, and you see the side effects of that, and that he's become desensitized to violence and has kind of cut himself off from the effects of, the consequences of what his actions will have, and the fact that he doesn't care now about innocent bystanders and those who are affected within this war, yet they have no active part in it, that kind of thing. So that's quite frightening to witness. It's very realistic though, and I can understand where he's coming from, but it certainly didn't endear him to me any more than, and it didn't heighten my opinion of him. Peter, fans will know that he's in a very different place in this book. I'm sure it upset a lot of people, especially if you're Team Peter or whatever. I like Peter. For whatever reason, I've cared for him more, I guess, out of the two guys. I'm not on a team by any means. It was interesting to see where he was this time, and it was upsetting to witness his downfall, if you want to call it that. I did at times get frustrated, kind of like Katniss did, although she was unfair to him and it wasn't his fault for where he was. But I think it did drag on at times, and you kind of got the full sense of what was going on, and then it felt like a little bit, less is more sometimes, I suppose. But it certainly painted a very interesting portrait of Katniss, because she was struck by how much she missed his kind of unquestioning affection and adoration now that it wasn't there, and it made her question, I suppose, where she sat, and you know, she had a loss of stability and I guess sort of a bit of a sense of self without him kind of defining her with his emotions, which was interesting to see. And Katniss, I know people have criticised her for being more weak and vulnerable and cowardly, I suppose, in this novel. It just felt a lot more human and realistic to me. I know that that's not the qualities that people had admired in her as a heroine in the previous books, but to me it just felt more natural, especially towards the beginning of the book, hiding away and trying to have naps and trying to forget about everything and not get as involved and trying to ignore, you know, the reality of what was going on. So that was, it's not admirable, but it's honest. Love triangle stuff, I hate love triangles, so I didn't give a shit, and it annoyed me that in the midst of the battles and the deaths and, you know, running from the opposition and, you know, all these tense situations, that Katniss would take time out to question herself as to Peter or Gale. Like, I don't care! I don't give a shit who you think you should end up with. I realised that maybe it was a wider metaphor or like a larger commentary on life, and, you know, in the midst of really terrible things you focus on something seemingly trivial, or you focus on something that might make you happy, or you think of life outside of this and you look to the future beyond it. But it just felt so stupid in those moments and so frivolous, and I just didn't care at all. It really frustrated me and reminded me why I hate love triangles. And I like to witness these characters and their journeys individually and as separate people, not dependent on one another. So yeah, the love triangle aspect never interested me. The thing that, and deaths were difficult to encounter, two in particular really upset me. One right towards the beginning, which I didn't want to believe was true. You'll know what one that is. And then one towards the end, which Melissa will certainly know, that one made me cry. And I think I actually shouted out, "No!" when I read it. I was really gutted by that one. The ending really bothered me. Like, the climactic moments didn't feel justified. There were some actions that Katniss took that I felt like they were trying to make it seem as though it was alluded to, and the dialogue made a little bit of sense, but then what the actions she took felt completely out of the blue to me. And, you know, it was a substantial shift in what I thought her plans were going to be, and yeah, it just felt very, very unjustified. And then the ending, the actual conclusion of the novel and the series, was far too swift and really, really unsatisfactory. And I think a lot of fans have felt that. It felt out of character for those that we get to find out, you know, where they are. For most characters, everyone's left kind of fraying in the breeze, and we don't know, nothing's tied up for them, which was frustrating because you've spent all this time with these people over 3 books. Katniss's ending and what her future potentially holds and such was really, felt like a cop-out, and it just left me feeling off. I didn't like that at all. Probably because of, you know, my viewpoints on things and stuff, but I didn't like where it finished and how the love triangle aspect was concluded. None of it felt right, and it was far, far, far too brief and sudden. So that was really disappointing. The previous books I've given 3.5 stars. I think this one will get a 3. So yeah, 3 stars out of 5 for Mockingjay.